Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host, Khalid. But today is the 5th of March 2025, and these are the stories that we will be highlighting during the course of the show. We'll begin, ladies and gentlemen, with Pakistan's war against terrorism. We all know how the attack by Fitna was foiled by our security forces in Banu Kant, where two vehicles were loaded with explosives rammed into the wall of the Banu Kent when there was a rush in the Banu Bazaar at the time of iftar. This adds to the number of incidents that have been happening in different areas of Pakistan, specifically in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and in Balochistan. But to some extent, we've also hearing events that are related to terrorism directly or indirectly, also emanating from Punjab. We'll be highlighting the modalities behind it, why this is happening, how this is happening, how our security forces are foiling all such attempts by such nefarious designs to destabilize our country in our first segment. Our second story, ladies and gentlemen, concerns the Ukraine-Russia conflict. Now, we did discuss yesterday as to how US President Donald Trump had paused the military aid, has suspended the military aid to Ukraine. Now, we have seen a very quick reaction as far as Ukraine is concerned, where the president of Ukraine has offered a course of action that he says could end the war. He talks about the fact that Ukraine was ready to release Russian prisoners of war, stop long-range drone and missile strikes aimed at Russian targets, declare a truce at sea immediately. Is this a reaction to what happened from the US side, or is there more to it? Also, there is the EU, the European Union, that is also at play as far as this whole conflict is concerned. We will be highlighting different aspects of this conflict in our second segment. Finally, we will be talking about women in Modi's India that are extremely vulnerable. Now, we have seen in the last few years the number of rape incidents that have happened in India, how New Delhi has been called the rape capital of the world. Now, in Haryana, a 22-year-old woman has been brutally murdered this month. This adds to the number of such incidents that have been happening all across India. And this puts a huge question mark as far as the state of women and their security in India is concerned. This is going to be our third story. Let's begin with our first, and that concerns Pakistan's war against terrorism. And we will, of course, be referring to what happened in Banu Kent as a case, but there are so many other cases that have happened in the last few months and weeks as well that we will be highlighting, and of course different modalities across that. We've been joined by two guests. Let me introduce them to you one by one. Brigadier retired Nawaz, defense analyst, joins us online. Sir, thank you very much to have joined us. And our second guest is Zahir Shah Sherazi. He's a senior analyst, also joins us online. Thank you very much, Zahir, to have joined us. We'll begin with you, Brigadier Saab. Brigadier Saab, this attack by Fitna in Banu Kent happens at the time of iftar, happens in a crowded bazaar in Banu, and happens in the holy month of Ramadan of all timings. And then, of course, we see what happens, the number of people who lose their lives, the number of injured, and the members of the fitna that are sent to hell. I'd like to understand one single thing. I mean, if you are a Muslim, this is what our religion teaches us: A, peace; B, the respect of and the sanctity of holy months. When you look at such incidents that happen during the holy month of Ramadan, do you feel, or do you think that the fitna have nothing to do with our religion, and their intention is only to malign not only our country but also Islam?
You see, Omar, the point is, please do remember that these Khawarijis were kicked out of Islam. They are not Muslims, even though they are not human beings. These act of animals, bloody beast. Nobody else can do it in the month of Holy Ramadan. If you are Muslims, you are fasting, and then how can you imagine to kill you other Muslims who are fasting? And then they tried to enter in our Banu cantonment, and our security forces, they were well aware, they were well alert, and they killed all 6 who were trying to enter in the Banu cantonment gates. Then after panicking, I think they got panic, and then they banned the 2 ammunition loaded vehicles with a wall, and resultantly I think they destroyed one mosque, Shaheed kar diya usko, and then of course their civilian house wall collapsed, and in that of course a lot of people got shaheed, and then They're injured also. Imagine, I can't imagine. I think no Muslim can, even to an extent, no human being. You see, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said, killing of one person, human being, is a killing of the whole human beings, insaniyat, mankind. Just imagine. How can you do it? This proves to at least every Pakistani and every Awan national and all those residing in this region that they're animal, they're not Muslims. You can't do it. And they're not doing any favor to the Islam for that reason. That's what I'm saying. And I think we must appreciate a lot our armed forces. The way they are fighting terrorism, Chief Army Staff the last time has shown determination to finish terrorism from the country. We will give all sacrifices. We'll get a lot of shahadat. We are already getting. But if you want to finish terrorism from the country, then we need the support of the whole of the country. Azme Istikam. The whole nation must stand because you fight as a nation against internal or external enemy, and that is the proof. So this is what it is. Now we have to get together. The enemy narrative and inadvertently, I would say, one political party narrative is to divide the armed forces of the people of Pakistan, and that is very serious because the enemy has realized, as regards people of Pakistan and the armed forces standing together and fighting terrorism, they can't bring any harm to Pakistan. See the state of Iraq, Libya, Syria, where the armed forces are weak and they didn't have the confidence people of their country. So they completed their all designs, whatever they wanted to do, they've done it. So today is the time we must have a renewed pledge in the month of Ramadan that the whole nation must stand together with armed forces and we have to fight this terrorism once for all. This is causing a lot of damage. We can't have economic stability. They know foreign coming. They don't feel their investment secured, their life is secured. That is what we need.
Okay, Brigadier Saab, there's a little bit of an issue as far as your voice is concerned. We can't hear you properly, so we'll get back to you in a bit. I'll refer my second question to Zahir Shah Sherazi. Zahir, according to confirmed reports, the remaining foreign nationals of Fitna have contact with Afghanistan over the phone. This was also confirmed by security sources that were present there. I mean, we have talked about Afghanistan and Pakistan's repeated pledge that they stop the infiltration from the Afghan soil into Pakistan. But when those nefarious elements that are in Pakistan and taking part in such activities are in contact with Afghanistan, that puts a very huge question mark on the administration, governance of the Afghan interim government is concerned. Aren't the people in Afghanistan, Muslims, aren't they enforcing a strict form of Islamic law as we speak? What kind of Islam then, allows for terrorist elements to infiltrate and then, kill people and then continue their contact with people in their own country? I'd like your point of view on that.
Thank you, Umar. I think this all scenario has nothing to do with Islam because the radicalized and extremist Islam that was for purpose introduced here, rather, tried to be infused on the mind of the youth and the youngsters during the Afghan Jihad. At that time, it was jihad or not, but that was a war which the Americans brought here and radicalized this entire region. Coming again back to this incident, I think this incident is claimed by some good Taliban, the Hafiz Gul Bahadur group, which is based in Afghanistan, and there is no secret about that. It means that the Afghan Taliban are not taking any action against all those elements, whether they are in the form of Fitna al-Khawarij or in the form of good Taliban, like Hafiz Gul Bahadur, which was once like considered a good Talib. So it means that the terrorists are terrorists, they are not good or bad. But we have to revisit our policy. What Brigadier Harris was saying, that the nation should be standing by it. The nation is always standing behind the armed forces, the security forces. But I think the ruling elite, whether they are on one page, they are supportive of this action, whether the federal government, whether the provincial government, whether they are on one page, this is a very serious question because now almost like 3-4 decades we have been fighting this war. But again, the consistency of our policy, it is not giving us like that result. Why? The armed forces personnel, they are offering sacrifices. the people who are on the front line, especially the tribal people, they are sacrificing their lives, their properties, their businesses. But still, why this war is not being? The reason is that we have to be, targeted. We have to continue with this national action plan and the continuation of national action plan to go against all those elements, whether they are in the urban part of Pakistan, whether they are the sympathizers, whether they are the supporters in one way or the other, and even all those political and religious parties who, in one way or the other, are supportive for those elements. I think they should be taken to task. Then obviously we must have a collective national policy, as was after the APS attack. We went full-fledged against the militants. Now it's time that not only in the internal part of Pakistan, we have to be very much realistic that we have to keep our house in order apart from taking up these militants. And then coming against to the international scene, I think we must have to convey to the Kabul, because there is no, I believe there is no, authoritative government in Kabul. There are different groups. Now these groups are tattered. Now we have reports that Mullah Ghani brother is out of the Taliban cloud, and Maulvi Hibatullah and his hardliner fighters are now calling the shots. They have excluded officially and to some extent the Hekmatyar group from the power. Tanikzai, who is also one of the key member of the Awan Kabul, who are at this time ruling the Kabul, he is out of the country. So it means now the Kabul administration is scattered. All those groups who were forced to combine under one command and they had shown their allegiance to Maulvi Hibatullah are no more accepting his authority. And the reason obviously is their policy towards Pakistan, their policy towards human rights, the Kabul administration's policy towards women education and international criticism, because they're fighting everyone. And at this stage, I think the regional countries, not only Pakistan, but Iran, Central Asian republics, and even China is worried about what is going on in the Afghanistan. Literally, Kabul don't have the right to all those areas. More than $7 billion of weapons are lying with the warlords.
That is another huge issue as well.
Yeah, so this is a very serious issue. Now, I think this region is now again becoming a potential war zone, and it will destabilize the entire region. So we have to be very quick. We have to be very active, and the kinetic operation inside Pakistan. I think across the border, you have seen the clashes on Pak-Afghan-Torkham border, the aggression by the Taliban fighters. I won't say that they are the Kabul government. I think they are different warring groups, Taliban groups, which are controlling the bordering areas, and they are deployed at the bordering area. So I think Pakistan is very specific, and it must be very specific about all those people who are threatening its security, if they are inside Pakistan or they are from across the border, because there is no government in Kabul. They are just militant groups, terrorist groups, which are attacking the Pakistani borders, and we have to be very realistic in taking action against them. And this is our right to defend our motherland against any aggression.
I agree with you on that. It is our total right to defend our motherland against any such nefarious element. Brigadier Haris Nawaz, I just wanted to update as far as the casualties is concerned. 13 security officials have been martyred, 13 civilians have been killed, 5 security officials have been martyred, and 16 terrorists have been sent to hell. And this operation, as far as the latest updates are concerned regarding the casualties. I'd like to understand one more thing. We recently saw U.S. President Donald Trump thanking Pakistan for having, given them one of the terrorists of the ISIK who was behind the killing of 13 U.S. soldiers. And then, of course, there was the reaction from our Prime Minister as well, who wrote a long tweet thanking the US side for the acknowledgement. How do you view this acknowledgement in the view of all that is happening in Afghanistan? We've also, I'd also like to refer to what Donald Trump talked about, the same arms, the $7 billion worth of arms that he has asked to be returned back to the US. In all of this context, can the US and Pakistan work together for counter-terrorism measures against these elements that are creating havoc in the region?
I think, first of all, the way Mr. Trump has appreciated Pakistan's effort. He acknowledged that Pakistan is really fighting terrorism and they've been successful, and how the way we supported USA means that we have a total cooperation with them. Then there was a propaganda coming up so many times that Pakistan US has strained relationship, and when Mr. Trump's come, think they're going to change and there's going to be interference in Pakistan. They're going to, the political party was so happy about it. Now is the time. I think it proves that Pakistan and USA are on the same grid as far as fighting terrorism in Afghanistan concerned. Then he appreciated the way Pakistan Armed Forces they arrested Mr. Sharifullah, who was the mastermind of killing of 13 U.S. nationals and over 170 Afghans in airport, and with a lot of veterans of one Pakistan border. And that I think brings a more close cooperation with Pakistan. This is a time to Pakistan to talk to Americans that this is what is all happening in Afghanistan. And it is very welcoming statement that when he says that we are asking Awan Talib interim government to return all $7 billion weapons and ammunition. In that, around 7,70,000 rifles are with them, and they are selling those weapons and getting money back to Afghan government. Along with the 70,000 APCs, armored personnel carriers, 70,000 trucks, vehicles. Just imagine how much they have got the weapon, ammunition, transport, and that is used against Pakistan. All leftover weapon ammunition are being used by BLA, BLF, BNA, Majid Brigade, then Khwarji's TTP, then of course Khorasan Group. All these people, and then of course UN report you must have heard. In that they say 24 terrorist organizations are in Afghanistan. It is a safe haven, and Al Qaeda is giving them training, and that means it has a global threat. So I think now is the time when Americans are thinking that Pakistan is really doing a great job, and we have lost in return around 80,000 civilians, few thousands of our troops, along with $150 billion economic loss. We must speak to them that this is what we are doing, and we are doing it single-handedly. Now is the time that Pakistan should ask USA to support also to fighting terrorism, because it doesn't affect only Pakistan, it is the whole region, and along with global terrorism is also being threatened. And in that, of course, the way we were saying, it should be coordination between Russia, then Central Asia, China, Pakistan, Iran. It affects all. If Afghanistan is peaceful, that means Pakistan has a connectivity from Central Asia through Afghanistan to Balochistan, and the Gwadar port is available for the whole market of Africa and Middle East. And of course, China gets from Kashgar to Gwadar port in 8 to 9 days. So this is going to be very, very important thing. Pakistan must tell Americans what all we have done for you. We have been supporting, even now we're supporting, and we will continue to support to do counter-terrorism operations because it affects us badly. But the only thing needed, we need to convince the world that Pakistan needs not only lip service, we need to have a financial support, military support to fight terrorism. We are really draining our economic resources. That's more important. Along with that, this is a very good step, and it conveys that Pakistan and USA had a good cooperation. We have had cooperation, and now we are having cooperation. This gives a good message to Indians also. And we have to tell Americans that please stop looking us through Indian prism. Pakistan and America should have the direct relationship, not through prism of India, that what India says and they believe it. You must have seen the Trump statement with Modi that Pakistan should not ensure there is no cross-border terrorism from Pakistan side. It is other way around. Pakistan is a victim of terrorism. We must know it. And I think this is the time that General Asim Munir has said many times that when I talk about a nation means the element of national powers and illegal spectrum. In that, the whole hundi money is coming, then narcotics, smugglings, that money, financial terrorism money is going to these terrorist organizations. Along with this, the effort to divide armed forces and people of Pakistan by the Indian narrative, we have to counter it. Along with that, you must have seen that day it was announced that Azmi Istikam, the PTI, ANP, and Maulana Fazlur Rahman said that they are against it. They are the Pashtuns are the most suffering people. Our brothers there really have sacrificed a lot in terms of life and property. So this is what I said. The whole political parties must be consensus. The way we have in one when our children were shaheed in APS Peshawar. So this is what we have to do, and that is very important now because we can't continue fighting terrorism for indefinite period. So, and this is what that's why I say now is the time we all sit together as a political party and government, then support armed forces and let's finish this terrorism once for all.
All right. Zahir Sherazi, last question regarding the different reports that are coming as far as the casualties are concerned, whether it be PICS, whether it be other think tanks. They say that the number of civilian casualties in February has increased, although the number of security personnel and the terrorists also remains more or less the same, and the incidents also remain more or less the same, with Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and Balochistan being the center of such activities. When it comes to the Afghan interim government, I mean, you did say in your last answer that it is not the government, but there are certain militant groups that are rampant, that are uncontrollable, and this is what is happening. But they need to be controlled by the Afghan interim government directly or indirectly, some way or the other. It's their country. This is how they do it. What should Pakistan do now? What options does Pakistan have as far as kinetic and non-kinetic measures are concerned?
Well, on our side of the border, the Pakistani security forces are doing a lot. I think intelligence-based operation, kinetic operation. Also, the local, counter-terrorism department has its own operational capabilities. The police is also, the civil administration is trying to, alienate these elements. But still, there are sympathizers. When it comes to the Pakistani side, Balochistan are in the tribal areas of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. For example, this Banu is a very strategic place. Banu is bordering south and north Waziristan alike on Jani Khail and the other side to the Ghulam Khan area. And this area was one of the, a stronghold of the militants, both north and south Waziristan. These were the nerve centers. Pakistan had dislodged them, thrown them outside their country. Now, the development in Afghanistan, the soaring ties between the different Taliban groups, Maulvi Habatullah, then Khalifa Haqqani, Sirajuddin Haqqani, and also the Ghani brother group, as well as Hikmatyar. I think these people are now pulling the strings in different directions. It means Afghanistan is likely to be a no-man's state again. It would be an open save happen for the militants, and maybe the international community is likely to come up hard if, as we have heard, that the Afghan Taliban has refused to hand over the weapons and all the military gadgets which the US-led coalition had left, and the reason for that has been given because this was a war and they have won the jihad, and now this is Male Ghanima and they are going to have it. So it is their right to keep those weapons. So this would be a serious issue. If Trump administration is going by force in any way, it would need Pakistan to help out. And obviously, Pakistan must lead this war because we have to get rid of these weapons and these militant groups, whether they are ISK, BLA, BNA, the Turkestan Islamic Party, because it's equally, and the Central Asian militants, they are all threatening. So I think we must have a multi-pronged strategy. We must have a regional coalition of Central Asian states, Iran, China, and Pakistan to take care of these elements. They have to take up this issue with the Kabul government, both on diplomatic front and also militarily terms. And then if it comes to the international coalition, I think the US-led coalition should realize that Pakistan had offered a lot of sacrifices. And third time, they have left Afghanistan on its own. The Pak-Afghan tribal areas, as well as the Afghan bordering areas, they are still volatile. They are safe haven. ISK was, as we have Sarah Adams reported, why ISK was airlifted here. The Biden administration had its own interest. They were trying to keep an eye on Afghan Taliban. They wanted to keep an eye on CPAC and Chinese interests. They wanted to keep an eye on Pakistan because there is still a huge mistrust. The US administration don't trust. They still want us to do more. But it's time, I think, we must have an international approach. We must have a contact with our Middle Eastern countries who are, guarantor in this deal in one way or the other. I think if we build pressure, it's no reason that Kabul would not be taking action against these militant elements. And if they are not, I think there is a solution again. The countries who are feeling threatened, they have the right to go full-fledged. They have to, even carry out cross-border operations. Iran should come forward. The Central Asian republics should take up this issue very seriously. But the dangerous aspect is that this is our border along Afghanistan, Balochistan, and the tribal areas of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, where most of the mess is lying. These militants are mostly on this side of the border. So we are the ultimate sufferer. So obviously, I think the Pakistani policy makers should be taking this issue not only diplomatically, but I think the military option should always be kept open, because it's our
options. I'm sure Zahir Saab are being discussed as we speak within our intelligentsia, within our government, and within our forces as well, as to what needs to be done, because I think enough is enough at one time. And the fact is that maybe the Afghan interim government is really not interested or serious enough to want to deal with such elements. So I think there needs to be some other tactic that our government will use with, of course, with the other regional players as well, as you have very ably mentioned. Thank you very much, Brigadier Haris Nawaz Saab, to have joined us, as well as Zahir Shah Sherazi to have joined us to discuss Pakistan's security paradigm, these terrorist incidents that are happening within Pakistan, and Pakistan's war against these terrorist elements. We will be back after a short with our second segment. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Our second segment concerns the Ukraine-Russia conflict, which has entered its 1105th day today. A lot of developments have been happening in the last few days. We all remember what happened in the joint media talk, let's put it that way, between Zelensky and Donald Trump and J.D. Vance last Friday, and how it all, did not go in the right direction, to put it very mildly. And then the announcement came that the U.S. President Donald Trump was pausing all kinds of military aid to Ukraine as a result, because he, of course, because of his own reasonings. Now comes a swift reaction from Zelensky, who says that he is ready for a course of action that could end the war, and he recites many different things that we will be discussing during the course of the segment. To discuss more on that, we've been joined by two guests. Let me introduce them to you one by one. In the studios, we've been joined by Zamir Ahmad Awan Sahab, who is a foreign affairs expert. Zamir Sahab, thank you very much to have joined us. And online, we've been joined by James Dorsey. He's an international political analyst. James, thank you very much to have joined us for this segment as well. I'll begin with you, Zamir Sahab. Zamir Sahab, President Zelensky offers a course of action he says can end the war. This comes, well, almost 24 hours after Donald Trump says that he's stopping all military aid. He says our meeting in Washington at the White House on Friday did not go the way it was supposed to be, quote unquote. It is regrettable that it happened this way. It is time to make things right, quote unquote. This is what Zelensky is saying. Then Zelensky says that he is ready to release Russian prisoners of war. He is ready to stop long-range drone and missile strikes aimed at Russian targets. He is ready to declare a truce at sea immediately. Moves, he says, will establish a pathway to peace only if Russia does the same. What is Zelensky aiming through these comments, through this olive branch, supposed olive branch, to Donald Trump?
As a matter of fact, when he met President Trump on last Friday, he was in a different altitude, and he was trying to be over smart. But when the thing not went smooth, he traveled back to Europe and he met the European leaders, and there was a defense conference in the London. And after having detailed discussions, maybe he has realized that is the hope is only from the U.S. because U.S. was a significant supporter of Ukraine during the war. They have provided the weapons and money and everything. And by offending Donald Trump, he cannot win this war. He realized, and now he is on the back footing and trying to reconcile the things. I believe President Donald Trump is a person who forgives the people, and he has a big heart, and he will accept him again, and he has already Zelensky has already offered that he is willing to do so many things like release of the prisoners and stopping the strikes inside Russia and all these things.
If Russia does the same. Yes,
but definitely.
But that definitely there's an
Yes.
olive branch that is coming in the
Yes.
right direction. James, I'd like to understand. President Trump delivers an address to a joint session of the Congress 6 weeks into his second term today. And he says, and I'm going to quote what he says as far as Ukraine is concerned, if you want to end wars, you have to talk to both sides. Of course, he says he has spoken to both Russia and Ukraine, but has refused to offer Ukraine a security commitment and has taken a number of chips off the table where Russia is concerned. He says, after announcing that Zelensky was ready to sign a peace and minerals deal, we've had serious discussions with Russia and we have received strong signals that they are ready for peace, which means that Russia is also ready for peace. Then he refers to this letter from Zelensky. Whether it was a letter or the post that Zelensky posted is something that is debatable. He describes that the social media was the note of submission and gratitude that Trump was looking for. Is this reaction from Zelensky exactly what the US government was aiming to get from the Ukrainian side after this pat on the stoppage of military aid? What now?
Well, first of all, I think we're jumping to a lot of conclusions. There is a lot of stuff that we do not know. We have not seen the full letter that Zelensky wrote to Trump. We have no confirmation of a lot of the detail that you mentioned. What we have is what Trump stated in his speech to Congress. I think and I also, if I may, would disagree with my colleague on Trump's character and whether or not he's a forgiving person. I don't think he is. That doesn't mean that he would not re-engage with Zelensky. What we have at the moment is a situation in which there are a lot of platitudes. We are ready for peace, which is exactly what Trump wanted him to say. I think that Zelensky realized, irrespective of what one thinks happened on Friday in the Oval Office, with other words, whether this was a setup and Zelensky fell for the bait, or whether it was simply a conversation that got totally out of hand. What is clear is that Zelensky handled it very badly. He handled it in a way in which he was definitely going to rub Trump the wrong way. And what he's done in his remarks since the Friday meeting, and potentially in the letter that he wrote, he's changed the tone. But I don't know that he has changed the substance.
I think that's a very important point to note, whether he has changed the tone or the substance or both. Nevertheless, whatever we have quoted right now is what was posted online by Zelensky. And some of it that I quoted from Trump's side was also what he said while addressing the joint session of Congress early this morning. Coming to you, Zamir Saab, Zelensky's proposal, in my point of view, maybe I could be wrong, is designed to shift the burden for ending the war somehow towards Russia as well. The White House claims that the Ukrainian leader is the main obstacle to peace. Is Ukraine trying to shift blame to Russia? And is this blame shifting going to work for the US side, for example?
I think that President Trump is not thinking in the same way. He is thinking what happened, forget about that one.
All right.
Now move forward, how to end this war. He has already communication with President Putin. He got Putin's mind, and now he is trying to convince Zelensky. On the other hand, Zelensky has very few cards with him. Very few cards with him. He is on the back footing. He is not the winning side. He is not the supremacy or upper hand in this case. Of course, Russia has occupied a lot of territory, has the upper hand. Definitely, the winner has to dictate the terms and conditions of ending the war. Zelensky have to accept this is his right to resist, this is his right to gain maximum, this is his right to give minimum and get maximum. This is his right, and he should try it.
All
There is
right.
no harm, there is no argument. But I think that end of the day, he have to surrender. He have to compromise a lot.
All right. I'd like to again add to the post that Zelensky said, James, and he says that Ukraine is ready to come to the negotiating table as soon as possible to bring lasting peace closer, quote unquote. Again, he says, quote unquote, my team and I stand ready to work under President Trump's strong leadership to get a peace that lasts. There is no immediate reaction from the Kremlin as we speak. Nevertheless, Mr. Putin has offered no hint of being willing to de-escalate this war. He is ruling out Ukrainian NATO membership. He's reducing the alliance's footprint in Europe. He's limiting the size of Ukraine's military and giving Russia influence over Ukraine's domestic politics. Is Russia going to get the concessions that it is asking for with US help? Is this peace deal going to be favoring one side, or will it favor both sides? What's your take on that?
I don't know that we're going to have a peace deal yet. Let's be very clear. The United States has spelled out what it understands a peace to be. It did so when Pete Hegseth, the new Secretary of Defense, last month attended his first NATO conference, in which he clearly said there has to be territorial compromise. With other words, Ukraine has to cede territory conquered by Russia in violation of international law, and there can be no membership for Ukraine in NATO. It's clear that both of those demands are demands that are in line with what Putin wants. They're not demands that, at least in this form, can be accepted by Zelensky. And Zelensky has already offered that he, indicating how important the NATO membership is, that he would resign if Ukraine were granted NATO membership. I think what one of the things let me put it differently. Trump had two objectives. One objective was Europe, and the other objective was Ukraine, which in many ways he's starting to achieve his objective in Europe. You've seen an immediate response to what happened last Friday in the Oval Office in Europe with a security summit, a seemingly significant commitment to increasing defense spending in Europe, something that not only Trump, but various past presidents, Democratic and Republican, have demanded. And you see, more importantly, in the context of Ukraine, a greater commitment on the part of at least various European countries, if not the EU as such, to use their own words, step up to the plate and create a coalition of the willing. So, in other words, first of all, it's not that simple to say that Trump has hung Ukraine and Zelensky out to dry. There are options, sure. There's not everything that Europe can compensate in terms of what the United States can deliver, particularly when it comes to rocket and missile technology and intelligence gathering. But there's a lot that Europe can do. And so I think we need to wait and see how this all unfolds.
Of course, we've had the pledge by Ursula von der Leyen as well, who has said that this is Europe's moment and we must live up to it. So all eyes are now also pointing towards Europe as far as this conflict is concerned, as to how much are they willing to back by Ukraine. In the days and weeks, we'll have a very, very clear idea on how much that is going to be. Zamir Saab, despite this increasing tension with the Trump administration, Ukraine never gave up hope that the relationship between Kiev and Washington could not be salvaged. In fact, they have been trying very hard. We've seen these statements as well that point in the right direction. The Ukrainian parliament also issued a statement that was directed at Mr. Trump that says, we are convinced that the security and stable environment of our nation are ensured by the unwavering support of the US and reflects the values that have been the foundation of America's historic success, inspiring millions of Ukrainians, quote unquote. This is a statement. Then the Ukrainian Prime Minister Shamiel also says his government will do everything to maintain diplomatic ties with Washington and was prepared to sign an agreement granting America extraordinary access to Ukraine's natural resources. We all remember that deal on the mineral resources that the US president had pointed, but we were not sure as to how Ukraine is going to react. How willing now is Ukraine to salvage its relationship with the US?
In matter of fact, when the Zelensky met President Trump, he was a little bit emotional. He was a different state of mind, and we can understand his frustration. But when he had the time, he traveled back to Europe, and his cabinet, his countrymen, his council or consultations, definitely Ukraine cannot afford to offend America. American help was great and huge. Definitely, they want to keep good relation with America. It is the people of Ukraine who will decide, not the one man emotionally do something wrong. I mean, in the longer run, it is the people who matters. And America also don't want to lose any country.
That is so true. But coming to this stoppage of the military aid by the US to Ukraine, do you feel it is going to resume at any time in the future, or a full stop has been put as far as this aid is concerned? James, this question is for you.
My guess is we're not going to see a resumption of aid very quickly. Also, don't forget that the relationship between Trump and Zelensky was never a good relationship. They have a bad history going back to Trump's first term. And Trump will see the suspension of military aid to Ukraine as a point of pressure. Whether pressure works or not remains to be seen. It hasn't worked in the case of Israel. It hasn't really worked in the case of Iran. And Iran has paid a very heavy price. I think that my colleagues attempt to draw as if there were a dichotomy between what Ukrainians want and what Zelensky want. Obviously, there are critics of Zelensky in Ukraine, probably any number of them, but he does have a substantial popular base, and I would not ignore that.
I agree with you on that. Zamir, do you feel that in the long run, Europe will be able to meaningfully provide a security cover to Ukraine without the US backing? And in your point of view, in your understanding, what is the reality of Europe's true security capabilities?
As a matter of fact, Europe was depending on NATO, on America. And suddenly the things changed, and they were not able to, it was shock for them. The current scenario, Europe may not be able to defend Ukraine independently without the help of America. But Europe has a capability, they have the technology, they have the resources, they have the money. If they decide to do it, in the longer run, maybe they were able. But instantly, I don't think.
All right. Last question to you, James, and that concerns this meeting that happened in London, the special summit that happened for the spat at the Oval Office, and of course how the European leaders joined hands to welcome Zelensky there, and there were a lot of pledges that were made there as well. And NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte also said that some European leaders had privately set out plans on defense spending, which he described as very good news. Speaking of NATO, I'd like to understand your take on what's going to be Ukraine's future vis-a-vis NATO. The whole conflict, or this war as you might put it, began because Russia did not want Ukraine to be part of NATO, one of the principal reasons at least. And now that we are back to the same point of the US saying it is not going to be, as you yourself pointed out, but there is this desire within a lot of European nations that Ukraine becomes part of NATO. And then there is also the fear that the war slowly and steadily is creeping towards the European gates. What happens to NATO and Ukraine's probable membership of it in the coming months or years, in your point of view?
Well, I think you've asked the fundamental question, and that is, what is NATO's future? Much more fundamentally in the last few days than Ukraine, and Ukraine is more an expression of it, is that Europe is really coming to realize two things. One, that it will have to rely on itself. The days of almost blind reliance on an external power are over. And it's realizing something that a prominent American strategist wrote about 20, 25 years ago, which is Europe without military power will not be taken serious by other major powers who have military power. And it has to start building its military power. And I think that's what we're starting to see. And I think that's in part what may determine the balance of power within NATO, if one assumes that NATO will survive.
All right. So a lot of question marks are also something that you've put forward to us, but we leave that, at vague to say the least. But let's see what happens, because the future seems to be uncertain vis-a-vis NATO, vis-a-vis how Ukraine is going to play this along, and how the US is going to play this along, as well as far as this peace deal is concerned, and who gets to get the meatier chunk of the pie in the long run. Thank you very much, James Dorsey, international political analyst, who have joined us online, and Sir Zamir Ahmad Awan. Thank you so very much to have come all the way to the studios to discuss this conflict that has been going on since years, but now we might see some kind of a probable end to this in the coming weeks. Thank you very much to have joined us. Let's come to our last story very quickly before the show ends. India, that considers itself to be the world's largest democracy, it says it's a pluralistic country. What is happening in India, in fact, is entirely opposite to what India claims itself to be. It's no longer the bright, shining India that it claims to be, because there are so many issues that concern different ethnicities and races. The Muslims that are being targeted, the Sikhs that are being targeted, Christians that are being targeted, Manipur, and so many others. India illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, the contested region that India claims is part of India, which it is not, as per various United Nations resolutions. To add to that is the human rights issues. And now more and more things are coming to light vis-a-vis the issues regarding women, their rape, their murders. Recently, a 22-year woman has been brutally murdered in Haryana. This young woman was killed by a brutal killer in Haryana's Rohtak. The body was hidden in a suitcase. Congress claims that the woman who was killed was Himani Narwal, who participated in Rahul Gandhi's Bharat Jodo Yatra. And of course, there has been a political spat between the opposition and the government. But the fact of the matter remains that New Delhi, that is the capital of India, is also called the rape capital of the world. If you look at previous incidents, in July of 2023, a 5-year-old girl from Bihar was abducted, raped, brutally murdered. August of 2024, 31-year-old doctor was raped and murdered at a medical college in Kolkata. We did highlight that in one of our shows. And in February this year, a teenage girl from Kerala revealed that she had been raped by around 60 men for the past 5 years. And who can forget what happened to the young woman in the bus in New Delhi? This adds to so many cases of human rights abuses. It is time that India, instead of pointing fingers, falsely pointing fingers at others, needs to look inwards and correct its own house before it's way too late for it to do that. With that, we come to an end of today's Newsroom. We'll see you inshallah tomorrow with news story segments that pertain to us here in Pakistan. Stay safe. Allah Hafiz.